Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. God has hidden unlimited treasures in His Word. Every time we open it, we can discover a new treasure, or admire an old one. What will we find today? Let's dig in. Here's Carla Early with Treasure Hunt in the Word.
At the end of Acts chapter 4, we find mention of a man who will figure into the history of the early church quite prominently. His name is Joseph, also called Barnabas. Because he was from Cyprus, he was originally most likely part of a synagogue in Jerusalem made up of Hellenists, which would have meant that he would have known both Stephen and Saul, and perhaps was good friends with both of them before they heard about Jesus. While Barnabas and Stephen believed and joined the church, Saul plotted against those who seemed to him at the time to be blasphemous. Barnabas was a Levite and apparently quite wealthy, since when we first read about him, he's selling his land and giving the money to the church. His name means son of encouragement, and we see throughout his story his character matched perfectly. He encouraged the fledgling church by supporting them with money. The next time we see him, in chapter 9, he brings Saul to the apostles, encouraging them to accept him on the basis of his conversion experience, and encouraging Saul as well. A little later, when some Gentiles believed in Antioch, the Jerusalem church sent none other than Barnabas to see what had happened. When he arrived, it said, he witnessed the grace of God and rejoiced. Then he began to do what he was known for. He began to encourage them all with resolute hearts to remain true to the Lord. Then we find out a little more about Barnabas, the encourager. 11:25 says, he was a good man, full of the Holy Spirit and faith. There, under his guidance, considerable numbers were brought to the Lord. Wow, what a ministry! But he wasn't done encouraging. He either decided he needed help, or he just wanted to encourage his friend Saul and get him involved in the ministry, or maybe a little both. It says he left Antioch and went to Tarsus looking for Saul. He brought him back, and for an entire year they taught and discipled the church in Antioch together. Toward the end of the chapter, the church finds out that there is to be a famine, so they gather money to send to believers in Jerusalem. Who do they get to take their gift to encourage the Jerusalem church? Saul and their encourager Barnabas. After fulfilling their mission in Jerusalem, the two returned to Antioch, bringing with them a young man to mentor and encourage, John Mark. Not long after that, God decided to send his encouraging servant Barnabas along with Saul on a missionary trip. They traveled around the Roman world telling others about Jesus, and then traveled back, encouraging the churches that they'd planted. Throughout the trip, it seemed Barnabas always took a back seat to Saul, who was by this time called Paul, but he was no doubt a great encourager to his friend during this time. When it was time for their second missionary journey in Acts 15, Barnabas, always the encourager, wanted to give John Mark another chance, but Paul refused, since Mark had turned back and gone home the last time. But Barnabas doesn't give up on him, and eventually 2 teams would go out, covering twice as much territory, Paul and Silas, and Barnabas and John Mark. Though we don't hear anything from Barnabas after this, and Acts focuses on Paul's journey, we do know that Barnabas' mentoring of John Mark paid off, because we have the Gospel of Mark. So behind Paul and Mark were their encourager, Barnabas. Who has been your encourager? Some of you have been encouragers for me. Who else have you encouraged? You know, a text, a note, even a smile or a hug when we get out of this whole COVID season can go a long way. I pray that God will use you and me to be a Barnabas or a Barnabas, daughter of encouragement, today.
You can contact us at treasurehuntintheword@gmail.com. Also, if you'd like to share a treasure God has given you by doing an episode, please contact us. You can listen to other episodes on our website, which you'll find in the description below. Thanks for listening, and remember, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.